This is FinTech Futures at Money20 Europe, and I'm joined by Tom Easterby of HSBC Innovation Banking. Tom, thanks for taking the time out to speak to us today. How are you enjoying the conference so far?
Oh, thanks, Paul. Appreciate you having us on. Loving the conference. We're here regularly, and every year I kind of forget how big it is and how many steps you put in kind of walking around, but it's fantastic to have so many people all in the same spot over a few days.
Excellent, sounds great. Well, just to get started, would you like to quickly let us know a bit more about yourself and your role at HSBC Innovation Bank?
Yeah, so I'm Tom, I head up the FinTech team within the Innovation Bank at HSBC. We provide banking and debt funding for businesses from seed right through to pre-IPO. We're part of a broader part of the HSBC family, and we're able to tap into the HSBC network so our clients can kind of grow with their banking as they grow themselves.
Sounds great. So, I mean, looking at HSBC Innovation Banking then, it was launched almost 2 years ago with HSBC's acquisition of SVB UK. Can you tell us a bit more about your journey so far then and the growth the business has seen over these last couple of years?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting and eventful kind of two and a bit years now. First period was kind of very much around transition and kind of integration into the HSBC machine and their rails, etc., which kind of naturally has its sort of pitfalls and stuff with any integration, but I think both sides came at that with a really kind of a can-do attitude. And over the last year or so, we've really been looking to kind of accelerate all the growth ambition that comes with the acquisition. So being able to plug into the HSBC products and services that they got across their platform that we didn't have when we were SVB UK, and then being able to grow the brand from a UK business that was bought out into lots of different markets that have really strong innovation economy brands.
Excellent, sounds good. And how would you say the UK fintech scene has evolved then over these last 2 years?
What I like so much around kind of the innovation economy and the startup scene is the fact that when it is evolving all the time, there's always something new coming in. And I think we're kind of seeing that in a bit of a period within fintech where we're seeing the kind of generation of neobanks beginning to mature and become kind of, multi-billion-dollar businesses that are all public or soon to be public and really having that kind of gravitas and scale. And they've kind of really demonstrated the track record that a lot of businesses kind of want to get on when they get set up. And at the same time, we're seeing lots of cool, innovative technologies coming in that's revolutionizing parts of our market again. So kind of things like digital assets and stable coins being a way to kind of really revolutionize how we look at payments. So there's always something that's kind of coming through and recycling. But at the same time, there's always other bits that are kind of starting to mature and showing kind of signs that they become part of the mainstream.
I mean, looking at investment trends, UK still ranks below only the US when it comes to a fintech investment. What is it you would say that makes the UK such a strong market for fintechs and investment in general?
Yeah, no, I think everyone in the UK is really proud of the fintech sector as a whole. And that's spread out for a number of things. The strength and kind of international gravitas of the City of London just kind of naturally means that the fintech industry has a home. Those kind of buyers a lot of the tech that comes out of fintech or the kind of ideas that come from ex-bankers that become entrepreneurs. It has that kind of that cycle element to it, which I think is fantastic. I think the UK as well is particularly since versus the US, they do get a lot more of the investment than we see in the UK, but we punch very much above our weight. And I think one of the reasons for that is that the UK is actually quite a small market, really. It's kind of small geography as well in terms of, you can have a startup based in London, but you can be in Manchester, Edinburgh, Cardiff in a couple of hours to be able to put some of your dev talent there and be able to pull talent in. I think we've got a really strong pedigree around the type of universities that we kind of have talent coming out of, and being able to funnel a lot of that talent into early stage fintech and early stage companies is phenomenal. And then the final point I'll probably make around this is around the regulator. The UK regulator, FCA, they get a lot of grumblings, bad press. People kind of like to complain about them, a little bit slow, not necessarily kind of as dynamic, etc. But I think one of the benefits we see from the UK regulator is that it is a relatively strong regulator. They do make decisions, and actually they give guidance, etc., that kind of gives the appropriate guardrails to companies. So if you're in some markets that don't have the same level of kind of strong regulation and strong guidance, you don't quite get the same level of confidence that you want when you want to invest or you want to kind of execute in that sort of way.
So that kind of leads nicely on to my next question. Obviously with global competition for investments increasing, do you think the UK can maintain its position on the global stage? And what do regulators or the government need to do to really solidify that position?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I suppose to kind of for the UK to maintain its position, you want to make sure that we don't just rely on the inertia of being kind of a very dominant part of Europe. one of the key issues that we've been kind of dealing with across the sector over the last couple of years is the kind of implications of Brexit on things like passporting for businesses that have that kind of regulated nature. And I think, that used to be such a game changer for businesses wanting to internationalize, to know that they could launch into lots of different markets very, very easily and seamlessly. So I think the UK government and policymakers here in the UK should really be thinking around how can we replicate that type of scenario. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the EU with a post-Brexit environment, it can be elsewhere, but to kind of make that international leap a little bit easier. And I think that'll be helpful in terms of an entrepreneur thinking, where do I start my business? I can start in the UK and know I can launch it internationally. And similarly, if you have an entrepreneur that's based elsewhere thinking, where do I go next? Make it easy for the UK to be the place that they want to choose to come and expand their business into.
Excellent. So I guess given the macroeconomic factors at play at the moment, what would you say the big challenges for founders when it comes to growing and developing their business, and what advice would you give for them to overcome those?
Yeah, I suppose, over the last 10, 15 years, we've had so many kind of issues and macroeconomic kind of hurdles to jump over, whether it was, the kind of the financial crisis or Brexit or the mini budget or COVID, etc. And what I hear from kind of really successful entrepreneurs that we work with, really successful businesses, is that they always try and maintain their eye on the goal that they're kind of out to achieve. If you stay client-centric, if you stay kind of mission-led, that's the guiding principle that you can have, and kind of don't allow some of the noise to come off around the edges. If you have a proven product that you kind of think is going to work and you've got confidence that you can kind of execute on it, maintaining that discipline is really key. I do think it's appropriate sometimes to have that kind of like almost like rational paranoia around the edges, to be thinking, well, what if here and what if there? Can get bogged down on a lot of that sort of stuff. But it's always helpful to kind of have that kind of sideways vision to like a very focused approach. And then the other tip I often give to entrepreneurs that are kind of on that journey is, build your ecosystem as you're going. Don't necessarily just speak to funders, whether that's equity or debt funders, when you need it, but start to build those relationships, bring those people on that journey. So if there is a kind of wrinkle in the road ahead, there is a macroeconomic kind of issue that's really impacting your business, they'll understand the background, the journey you've been on, the kind of what levers you're pulling, and then kind of almost be a little bit more supportive and actually probably be able to kind of give some appropriate advice or support or give you a different frame of mind to be thinking about those sorts of problems.
Excellent. So what would you say that some of the key areas of development that UK fintechs are focused on at the moment, and which technologies and sectors are seeing the most traction, you think?
It'd be remiss of me not to talk about AI when I talk about kind of sectors that we're starting to see a real kind of trend around. AI in fintech has such a broad implication, whether that's kind of helping with efficiency of payments, whether we're using it in fraud, whether we're just using it in like kind of better and more experiential UX. But we are seeing a bit of a shift from the kind of model layer into that application layer, and being able to really see and visualize what that AI is doing across the kind of consumer and to some extent the B2B journey as well. So that's really interesting how that's kind of developing, and I think a lot of the chat around AI is, will it replace jobs? I think we're just seeing it as a natural evolution of some of the efficiencies that we get out of the market. The other kind of great thing we're seeing across the fintech space is blockchain, and how that kind of has an implication for digital assets, digital currencies, etc., and how that's really proliferating. Kind of over the last 6 months or so, the kind of big kind of hype that we're starting to see get more traction is around stable coins, and I'm really excited to see what that can do to the kind of international payments part of our market, and really revolutionize what is kind of a very, very, very traditional, slightly slow, expensive part of the market.
Sounds good. I mean, are there any other technologies that you're most excited by at the moment as well that could potentially revolutionise banking further?
I think kind of expanding further on the blockchain piece. We've seen different payments, so that you'd be able to utilise blockchain from a payments perspective is super relevant, interesting. I think we've seen the proliferation of other payment processes over the last few years. I'm thinking kind of like open banking, etc., and that's been interesting in terms of it's had good applications in some ways and then hasn't failed to kind of really materialize in other ways. So for example, I've been really interested to see how kind of B2B businesses have been using open banking as a kind of click to pay phenomenon, but we don't see that integrating itself into the retail experience in the same sort of way. So I'd like to understand kind of like what businesses might see that technology coming through. And the reason I'm kind of so interesting. I think that's kind of a core part of our market, is that it's such a cheap method for payment infrastructure. So if you can kind of find a way to make that user experience much more seamless, fewer taps, etc., that could be a real revolutionary change as well.
Excellent, sounds great. And just to finish off then, what's next for HSBC Innovation Banking then? Is there anything else in the pipeline that you can tell us about at the moment?
Yeah, we're really excited about kind of getting out on the road and speaking to clients, speaking to prospects and helping them grow. Our international expansion is also key on our agenda at the moment. We work with part of the HSBC network around 60 countries across the globe, and being able to put an innovation banking brand into lots of those key markets, and which allows our clients to be able to kind of expand into them as they expand. Hopefully we'll be in a position that if you're a UK startup and looking to grow internationally, being able to do that with a bank like us when you enter a new market is something I get really excited about. Knowing that you can kind of help shape and develop that kind of global expansion of a new technology in a business is really exciting.
Sounds great. Well, Tom, thanks again for taking the time out to speak for us today. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.